guys, how's it going? You good? I'm good. Welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk about aesthetics and whether or not they're problematic, because that seems to be some sort of discourse that's going on the internet. And for any of you who have been around my channel a lot or for a long time, or who've just seen a lot of my videos, there was a time when I was doing an aesthetics series where I basically tried a bunch of aesthetics, discussed them, like where they came from, why they're popular, if they're popular, and maybe some issues within them, if any, did exist. And the reason I did this was because as a person who is interested in fashion and seeing these internet aesthetics, for anything you like or for anything that a lot of people take part in, there's always some sort of conversation to be had about how exactly everything's being done or the types of people that are being shown, etc. And also my interest in this issue is because in looking up stuff for an actually different video, I came across this video that was basically talking about why aesthetics and having aesthetics is problematic, and I was like, whoa, here we are throwing around that internet word again, problematic. What do we really mean when we say that? Sometimes I feel like the word problematic is just as vague as the word aesthetics. It's like there could be other words used to narrow it down, but I feel we're just like, slap it on there. I actually really like the word aesthetics for its vagueness. Like, I could tell you aesthetic music and you would know exactly what I mean. I could tell you aesthetic background and you would know exactly what I mean, what kind of vibe I'm going for. It's vague enough to fit everything in, but at the same time there are things that you can't fit in. And somehow everyone who is as obsessed with internet culture as much as I am will know exactly what I'm talking about. So the first complaints I got from that video, and a few others that I've watched that are talking about aesthetics being problematic, is the lack of inclusivity and diversity. If you haven't been on this channel before, this is just my campaign to get you to join forever, because I'm going to be referencing myself so much. I'm going to be like one of those annoying or just very accomplished writers who constantly cite their own work. You will know that I can never be accused of never mentioning the importance of diversity or inclusivity. If anything, I could be accused of talking about it a bit too much, like, we get it, you want everybody to be included. That is the same sentiment that has been expressed in these videos. So the idea that for every aesthetic you can think of that is like cottagecore, Y2K, whatever, there are predominantly white, predominantly skinny faces. Of course, the solution for this is just to obviously encourage people to seek out content that is outside of the mainstream within whatever subculture they participate in. So you could look up the interpretations of, say, dark academia by black creators or Asian creators and see what their take on it is, or just, them having that sort of chance to like express themselves with it. And there's also the issue of even those who are making that sort of content who are POC, who are black, aren't getting the same recognition as their white counterparts. This issue exists in every aspect of everything in the entire world. Like it is not just a problem that exists with aesthetics. I agree that there is a lack of inclusivity and diversity, and it's just really good to see more and more people talking about it. So I thought I would talk about it. I don't know what the point of this video is. I just want to have a conversation, as always. Another video I watched stated escapism as an issue within aesthetics, which I rewatched over and over what they were saying, but I'm still very confused why, because I think I've mentioned this before in a few aesthetics videos I've done before, that a reason why loads of aesthetics such as cottagecore a lot of people have taken interest in them, especially last year, is because of the start of the pandemic. A lot of people are looking for ways, to forget about their daily life and their daily stresses and, being stuck at home. You get a lot of downtime to look into a lot of stuff. And if all you're ending up doing is maybe being obsessed with the idea of knitting your own clothes and baking all the time and stuff, then I don't really see an issue with that. I think everyone is allowed to have their own sort of coping mechanism, and everyone does. It takes different forms. For me, it was starting a YouTube channel. But I think the YouTuber I'm mentioning particularly mentioned the need for people to have a grasp on reality, but I feel like in the age of like the digital age, where really you are bombarded with just so much media, I don't think that a person choosing to like express themselves through a particular aesthetic could be so problematic to the extent of them highlighting it. Another issue that was in the discourse was the historically problematic aesthetics. So, like dark academia, for example, and the admiration for academia, which the era of academia that's being admired in this particular aesthetic was largely male dominated, which is still is largely white male dominated, and we all know that academia is also responsible, like academia at that time is responsible for, you know, colonial knowledges that were used to justify things like, you know what I'm talking about, I don't want to go there, but it's that sort of sentiment where it's like, why are you admiring the aesthetics of people who did this and who did that? And also with cottagecore, because the idea of living on your own plot of land and growing this and growing that, cottagecore developed quote-unquote settler period in the US, when Native Americans were being displaced from their land and all the horrific stuff associated with that. So it's like, can you really try and revive things from that era? Because it's like, how, even if you are like idealizing the idea of going to live on your own little plot of land, how and where are you getting the land for that kind of thing? There is the sentiment, you know, it's vintage style, not vintage values. I mean, these people aren't going out and displacing people from their land. These people aren't going out, and in terms of the like exclusivity of academia, the people taking part in these aesthetics for the most part are women, and in some cases they are minority people who would have been excluded from both of these aesthetics at the time. So can we not say that it's sort of like a reclamation of these periods and trying to reimagine them, trying to reimagine how they would have felt at the time if they were allowed into those spaces? Personally, this is my own personal experience of this, but a lot of the times when people are critiquing the problematicness of the historical backgrounds of these aesthetics, it is usually people from, I'll say, non-oppressed groups that are sort of saying this in trying to say, well, don't join these aesthetics because they remind people of XYZ. But I've never actually seen a minority person who says that they are personally offended by the aesthetic. If anyone does, then that is what the comment section is for, and I do redact my statement and I do apologize if I am wrong in this regard, but I genuinely think it's usually a case of people critiquing this on behalf of other people, which sometimes comes off as them extending their own white savior complex, but that's again just my perception of it. And usually the people I see who get the most heat are actually when POC or black people, especially black women, I've seen, for example, being called slaves or being called peasants for taking part in the cottagecore aesthetic, which is really bad. And this is especially on Twitter where I've seen that. And I do understand the critique that, yes, it is alluding to a negative historic time, but I feel like if you pick at anything enough, then it can go there. Like, someone could easily question me for still maybe not embracing my culture by filming my videos in English instead of Shona, but then Shona. The final critique that I've seen about aesthetics and aesthetic culture is that it doesn't give people room to be creative. And this is because people often try and fit into a box, trying to decide which aesthetic they fit into, and there are a lot of memes of people being like, oh, but I like this and I like this, but then two completely separate aesthetics, so what does that make me? Or every time people see something like a certain style they like, they immediately want to put it into a box of like, what aesthetic is this? Which I think is just a human or a societal instinct of ours to instantly want to categorize something into a box, like, oh, you're a YouTuber, what kind of YouTube videos do you do? And you have to box yourself into something, into a certain niche, and then if you try and, and every sort of content has a niche box in it so that a person can say, I am a cottagecore TikToker, or I am a Y2K TikToker, right? I wouldn't say it stifles people's creativity, simply because, judging by my very extensive survey on my channel, not a lot of people actually wear aesthetics in the real world, even though they might enjoy consuming the content online. People just wear what they have, wear what they wear. and very few people are actually dedicated to a soul style like punk or whatever. The idea with consuming this content is that, say you like the idea of a large sweater with a pleated skirt, and then you wear that with big punk boots or something, and then you may have different styles for different days or whatever. I think it's a problem with people's creativity online rather than in the real world, because I feel like online then people have the pressure to sort of keep up a certain aesthetic and aren't allowed to branch out to a certain thing because you've kind of become known for that certain style. And I do agree that there is a lot of gatekeeping as well with like what people like, what gets classed an aesthetic and what isn't. Like, who decides that this is cottagecore and this is dark academia? And especially with those two, there are a lot of blurred lines as to like which one is which, and stuff like that. So I just think that people should be allowed to mix things up, and people should be allowed to not necessarily put themselves in a box, because it would be quite ironic to try and put yourself in a box again, considering the very vague meaning of the word aesthetic. The internet's definition is basically just like beauty and the appreciation of beauty, but that's it. And that again could be used to describe anything. Aesthetics and aesthetic culture on the internet is just a way for people to express themselves, and the freedom to express yourself, I guess, and feeling like you can and feeling inclined comes from, again, the types of representation you see. So it's important to have those discussions of who is being given these platforms, what are they doing with them, and making sure that the internet and aesthetics cultures and all the subcultures are as inclusive as they should be and can be, because there is huge potential for that. But a lot of times that doesn't happen for people, and everyone ends up feeling like they can't live up to this very ambiguous and very like arbitrary standard set on the internet, and that's just based on likes and numbers or something, I guess. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. Like, are you like, what draws you to whatever aesthetic you are drawn to in terms of just looking at it, or if you dress that certain way? I think this serves as a very good like conclusion to my whole aesthetics series, because I kind of just left it hanging. And I think that is also because, again, I was afraid that I couldn't live up to certain aesthetics because I don't have the extensive wardrobes that some influencers manage to have. If you somehow made it to the end of this video, if I'm even still posting this, yeah, thank you so much for watching. Also make sure you like, subscribe, share this video, comment your thoughts, all the good things that the algorithm gods like. Okay, bye.